Hello everyone. So I received a lot of comments on my basically concerning my video on the beef between Awkward Goat and Shwetabh, and then the following video that I made on Andrew Wilson, me reacting to him. There are some points that I want to cover. There is a kind of a well structured comment that I have received that I am going to want to use as a reference. So, number one is a lot of people were calling me a misandrist. As far as the particular reel of Awkward Goat that I supported, where she said that she doesn't believe in wearing sindoor or Mangal Sutra or changing her last name to the last name of her husband, where nothing hateful was mentioned about men. If that feels to you like misandry, just the content of that reel, not the past baggage that you have about her, just the content of that reel feels to you like misandry. If a woman is saying what she wants to wear and what she doesn't want to wear, then you are living with a serious degree of entitlement, because just women talking about what they want and what they don't want, that is causing harm to no one, registers in your mind as hatred for you, and this is not okay. Now, because you had all this past baggage that you had from her and you reacted to that reel negatively, it stopped making sense to me, because call her out on the things that she has done wrong. If you don't do that and you pick a reel that resonates with a lot of female experience, that resonates with the feeling of a lot of women. In fact, I will go as far as to say that what she said in that reel was pretty vanilla to me. She started off that reel by saying, I think this is going to be super controversial, but it shouldn't be. And I was really expecting it to be very controversial. And then it was so vanilla. It was things that I have discussed with my friends or my sisters when I was 7 or 8. Like, why do we have to change our last name? Why do we have to leave our house? I didn't find anything offensive or hateful. In fact, it irked me that so many men took that as a personal attack. If you found some of her actions questionable, question those actions. If you are picking something that makes a lot of sense and that is not at all hateful to you, and you are hating on that particular thing, you are alienating and antagonizing the women who resonate with that experience. Call out the actions of hers that you find problematic. Don't pretend that her content, which is not misandrist in nature, is misandrist. Number two, about the blue drum reference or what she said in that regard, I find it insensitive. I don't condone that. But to say to all women that you should immediately stop following her because she has made a lot of, this one reference, which is very insensitive, yes, but pitted against her representing, her kickstarting some really interesting conversations that have not been mainstream before. It's unfair to expect all women. Again, she should be called out because it's insensitive. But it's like me coming to you and telling you that most of your mainstream politicians, your heroes, your actors, celebrities, your writers, a lot of them have made multiple extremely insensitive, derogatory statements about women, and you were not expected to stop following or stop liking that person immediately. So it's a bit hypocritical that even if, as a person, I agree that what was said was very insensitive, I should not be expected to stop following someone whose content I resonate with because she said one cancelable thing. This just comes to my mind. I remember a statement of Salman Khan when several years ago, when he was asked how he felt after training for the movie Sultan, and he said that he felt like a woman who had been like a woman who had been assaulted, raped. And nobody is canceling him. Women, we are not going in your DMs asking you to unfollow him. It is not fair. It's not like I can say that what she said was insensitive, but I don't become a misandrist by following her. Number two, her sending copyright strikes to YouTubers. I don't support that. Don't support that at all. And I have addressed that very clearly. I think it is bullying. More than misandry, it is bullying. Now, she, in her side of the story, she said that a lot of the subscribers or the followers of these YouTubers who she sent copyright strikes to were coming to her DMs and threatening her. And she said that she had messaged Shwetabh asking his followers to not do that. And she didn't show any proof, and Shwetabh denied her ever having reached out. So, is there a way for me to know the truth of what is happening in the background? There is no way for me. Even then, it doesn't justify her copyright striking these two channels because they are doing exactly what she's doing. And this is it. When something is not violating copyright, you should not use it to threaten someone else. Having said that, I watched Shwetab's reaction to her, and he said he takes offense on the line of where in what she said, in which she said that a lot of Shwetab's followers are misogynists. And I don't think that is entirely false. I don't think Shwetabh himself promotes misogyny, but I am disappointed by him not very explicitly addressing how a lot of his followers also follow hardcore red pill content online. Shwetabh himself, his content is not red pill, but a lot of his followers are also following hardcore red pill content, and it is happening in parallel. So, is it completely unbelievable to me that some of the followers may have really harassed her? I don't know, but not completely unbelievable. And I am so sorry if I'm offending someone. You are Shwetab's followers, that doesn't automatically mean that you're a misogynist. But I do see that there is an overlap because I was forwarded this video of Mr. Andrew Wilson, who basically says that all women have rights because men are giving them those rights. Um, I was forwarded this video by a man who I think is a follower of Shwetab's. So I do know that there is a overlap. Some of his followers are following red pill content, which is very hardcore red pill content. Before I get to this R word discussion, I just want to ask all people following Andrew Wilson. First of all, I don't agree because he is basically saying that brute strength is enough to organize 4 billion people, which is around 50% of the world's population, which is all men. Only through brute strength you can organize those people into enslaving the other 50%. Brute strength is how 15 people can cause a riot and break shops and harm people within a span of hours. Brute strength is not enough for you to systematically enslave people. That requires a lot of mind, which is why, in on the contrary, opposite of what Andrew Wilson says, that women always need men to ensure that they have rights, men always need women to ensure that they can enslave women. They always need to keep some women in the upper levels of hierarchy where some women keep benefiting from patriarchy so that they can be the guard dogs of patriarchy for other women. So, anyways, that's a different discussion, but I just want to ask you, is there nothing else in your life that is giving you self esteem? Is there nothing else in your life that is fulfilling you? because you depend on this mythology that you have created in your own head, which I'm asking you to prove, but it's not provable. You have created this mythology, and you are believing in this mythology where you say that women get their rights from men, and that is your source of self esteem. As an individual man, that is where you get your self esteem from. You don't get your self esteem from your career. You don't get your self esteem from how disciplined you are. You don't get your self esteem from being a great father or a great husband or a great son or a great brother or a great friend. You don't get your self esteem from there. This is where you get your self esteem from. Well, if I wanted to, I could enslave all of you. What a tragic way to think. What a tragic discovery that so many of us are so lost that we depend on these schools of thoughts to get our self esteem. A lot of the people gave an example of Taliban, which is a terrorist organization, and they haven't just taken away women's rights, they have taken away several other people's rights as well. And they have just come. Have you ever seen any system in the history of the world where a certain faction of society was abused, enslaved, disenfranchised, and they never broke out into a rebellion? There is no example. There is no such example. I said it in my last video. I will repeat it now. Human nature is not like that. Human nature is not like that. When you subjugate someone, there will be a rebellion eventually. And the women in Afghanistan are also seeking ways to educate themselves. They are seeking ways to inform themselves in whatever way they can. So I still don't understand where this comes from. And you don't seriously believe that you are going to achieve a good world by enslaving 50% of your population, who then, because you will be the one going outside, this enslaved population is going to be the primary caregiver of the children that you are going to have. And you think that this might be a good idea, that you enslave them and antagonize them and disenfranchise them. Most men, they know that this is a very stupid idea, and most men are doing things in their life where they have other sources of self-esteem. Even if they are not succeeding at a certain scale, there is a source of self-esteem, so I don't have to get my self-esteem from how much I can abuse another gender or another race. And my problem is not just that you all hate women or you all compete with women, or maybe hate is the wrong word. You are filled up of contempt and resentment towards women. That is not my problem. It is really your business who you want to hate or love. My problem is that your contempt or hatred of women is not going to stop you from wanting to date them. It's not going to stop you from wanting to have sex with them. It's not going to stop you from wanting to get married to them, wanting to have relationships with them. If it did, and you said, I find you so contemptible, that I find you so worthy of contempt, that I'm not even going to engage with you, I have no problems. Don't engage. You are going to keep engaging with people, with women, at least you're going to try to keep engaging with them. And the only women, very few women, if at all, hate themselves so deeply and so completely that they are going to know that a man looks at them and looks at all women through eyes of contempt and resentment, and they are going to willfully bring that man into their lives. And you know that as well. So you are never going to lead with this in your relationships. And even if you do lead with this, then all women above a certain age, let's say about above 28, 30, when they are fairly independent, they are not going to entertain you. So your only possibility is to go after people who are very young, like just out of their childhood, let's say 18, 19, 20, and you may process this as an accusation. I'm not accusing all of you, but I believe, I have seen how these men who are full of contempt for women move. So, your option is someone who is fairly young, who cannot see the danger or who doesn't understand the gravity that of that danger, where you are welcoming into your life as a companion, as a trusted person, a man who essentially hates you. Or you are going to go after people who already have a history of abuse. So already they have been abused either in a past relationship or in their houses. These are the women who a lot of the times have very less self-esteem. They have a broken sense of self-esteem and they want to be accepted no matter who accepts them. So, and once you get into these women's lives who are either really very young or who have been abused, or both, they are very young and they are coming out of a situation of abuse, so they cannot see the danger, you are going to start to break their self-esteem bit by bit by bit. Even if the abuse is not physical, the man that you are sharing space with, that man talking to you as if you are nothing or you are inferior or your thoughts don't have any value, bit by bit. And then you are also going having sex with that man, you're also eating food with that man, you're also cooking for that man, maybe. This kills the self-esteem further of the person who's participating in this kind of a relationship. And that is what breaks my heart, because essentially women who are the most vulnerable to be victims of further abuse by someone who hates them and someone who has consumed enough red pill content are women who are already have survived abuse and are trying to recover from that, and they hope that if they are able to get chosen and loved by someone, that love will heal them. And then they get into these situations where they are broken down further. That is my problem. My problem is not that you hate women. My problem is not that you derive your self esteem by how much you can mistreat a woman and get away with it, by how much you can enslave, by how much you can terminate a woman. That's your business. What you do in your mind is your business. My problem is the human cost that a lot of women are going to pay for this. And as far as Misandry is concerned, what she said in the reel is not misandrist. What Awkward Goat said in the reel is not misandrist. I have never supported her, or I have never said anything derogatory about men. I have not been insensitive to them on purpose. Neither have I made podcasts saying women are superior to men and this is how you should manipulate men and this is how you should put men in their place. So I don't understand where this allegation is coming from. The very last point, and it's funny to me, your sense of reality is so warped that you think a woman saying that she doesn't want to wear a sari and sindoor and change her last name is an equal amount of hate towards you as a man saying women don't have inherent rights, they only have rights because we choose to give them and we can enslave them when we want. These two are offenses of an equal degree according to you, is what boggles my mind. And another thing that boggles my mind is when Shwetabh, he can look at the hypocrisy or he can look at a certain pattern in Awkward Goat's video and react on those patterns. Why don't you see the same thing in some very hardcore red pill content being pushed? Why don't you try to sway your followers away from that? I feel, again, it's not his responsibility. I'm pretty sure that he's doing what he can, but it's disheartening. The very last point is Awkward Goat calling someone the R word. Her calling, and I have discovered through a little bit of a research that the person that she called the R word is another creator, and his name is AJ Bhairav. So I tried to figure out when exactly this happened, why she called, what was the context, what was the story. I could not figure out what exactly the story was, but in my opinion, I have found two videos where maybe the reaction from her was on these videos. Two of these I have found out, and I can react on those. I'm going to react on those now. So, my guess is it was one of these two videos that the awkward goat reacted to by AJ Bhairav. Let's see. This one. Okay, so this is maybe one of the options. And before I say anything, for people, so this is like, it feels like the guy is it's portrayed in a very positive light, like he has his shit together. And I just want to ask, are girls also allowed to ask men if they are virgins or not? I hate using that word. Does this work both ways? Because if this works both ways, I really have no problem. Nobody outside of you should tell you what you should want. But in this video, there are a lot of implicit things, and I don't get the vibe that this works both ways. And I think this is a commentary on women saying that men who want to know their sexual history are insecure, and it's not always the case, but it's a lot of the times the case. So again, you have to decide where you belong. I don't. Anyways, the next one, which I think is perhaps might have been that video. This is the next one. First of all, before I start saying anything, none of these videos are a good enough reason for someone to be called a potential R word. It's a very serious allegation to put on someone, not fair at all. But I want to say a few more things. In both of these videos, if you don't sense kind of the passive aggression, then I don't think we are looking at the same thing. Because in the first video, when the guy is talking about his past, he is basically talking about decisions that he took in terms of his career, his savings, I'm assuming, because he was able to save up enough. Then he got his priorities correct, set right. He knows how he wants to travel, and he's saying all of these, and no problems with that. The girl's past always revolves around her sexual history. But I didn't see this man in the first video talk about his sexual history. So, am I supposed to assume that the man is asexual? And I'm just supposed to assume that every man I meet is asexual? Or is the message that sexual history doesn't matter? Which one of the two is this? And in this video, so the guy is like, okay, his height matters, how he looks matters, his monthly and what he is doing on the side. Again here, height matters, looks, how much he makes, what he is doing on the side. But suddenly we come to women, and sexual history is a very big thing that matters again, which I didn't see with the guy. Does a man's sexual history not matter? The only framework in which you can successfully prove that a man's sexual history does not matter is a framework that says that women are basically objects. And an object can get used, but men are not objects. So, them having sex does not mean them getting used. Alcohol, okay, some people don't want someone who drinks. Monthly income and cooking, okay. And this is where I get a bit triggered. This is my explanation. I am not justifying what he was called by Awkward Goat, and nobody should be called that. Virgin. Virgin. How I hate that word, virgin. Here, right here. I find it so weird that in our culture, the sexual history of women is treated as some kind of a, not even sexual history. It's not like you have had too much sex. It's not even like you have had multiple sexual partners. It's that unopened packet. You're an unopened packet. It's giving this kind of a thing where virginity is touted as some form of a virtue in women. It gives you are an unused, unopened packet. You're not a second-hand car. You're a first-hand car. And the man is saying, I have worked so hard in my life. I have made all the right choices. Now, why should I get a second-hand used object? I want a first-hand object. I want a first-hand car. I always get the ick when I see this word, especially it being associated with women, but it being associated with really anyone. Sex is not a certain experience where you have sex one night and then the next morning you wake up and your fundamental values, your worldview, how you look at the world, what the things that you believe in, the things that drive you, that motivate you have essentially changed. That is not what sex does. You go to bed with the same personality, you pretty much wake up with the same personality. So, the only worldview where this kind of a thinking is valid, where virtue is attached to a woman having zero sexual experience, is the worldview which says that women are objects which are created for the consumption of men. Because I didn't see in his video anything implying that a man's sexual history has value. And it's like, oh, if women can want tall guys, we can want virgin women. You can want whatever you want. And before I go further, I just want to say I am not one of those. I do understand the place where people come from when they say a person's sexual history matters. Because if you see that a person has consistently had a pattern of behavior where they use sex as a means to cope, sex as a means to distract themselves, or as a means to get validation over and over and over again, there is a certain amount of dissociation that they are training themselves. They are basically training themselves to dehumanize the person in front of them, to create compartments in your brain. A lot of guys do that, by the way. You are creating compartments in your brain where this person right in front of me is just an object I'm going to use for my sexual pleasure, but that person is the person I actually care about. This is very problematic according to me, and I look at it with a lot of skepticism and distrust. It doesn't matter who does it, whether a man is doing it or a woman is doing it, because again, you are training yourself to dissociate, to dehumanize the person and to dissociate from your own experience, because you have to get naked with this person, you have to get very, very intimate, have sex with this person, but you also have to make sure that in your mind this person has zero value. This is dissociation. You are dissociating. So that is problematic, but it's problematic when both people do it because it teaches you to dehumanize people. Funnily enough, the same thing is happening when you associate, when you put all of a woman's worth, a woman's value in her lack of sexual experience or having sexual experience. You are doing exactly the same. You are dehumanizing that woman. because her having or not having sexual experience, unless it's a repetitive pattern, which is like you are using sex to cope all the time, you're using it as a means of validation, it also involves a high level of disregard for the third person's emotion, right? The person that you are interacting with may not always be on the same page as you, may not always be as uninterested in you as you are in them. So you also have to repeatedly train yourself to have absolute apathy for that other person's well-being, and you keep engaging with them. But this applies to both men and women, and it's very problematic how our society puts value, and not just our society, perhaps a lot of men across the world look at women as objects, and they get a certain ego boost in knowing that I have used this object first. And this mentality of all your value lies in your vagina, and if I become the first user of that vagina, I strip you of your value. This enables sex crimes to happen, because then the act of sex can be used as an act of hatred against women, because if all of a woman's value does actually lie in her vagina, then the easiest way to degrade, to demean, to crush a woman is to strip her of that value. So this mentality where we objectify women, वस्तुकरण, औरतों का वस्तुकरण जो हमारे समाज में होता है, this mentality leads to sex crimes, because a lot of the sex crimes are essentially crimes of hate. They are not born out of lust. They are born out of a desire to control, to demean, to put somebody in their place. And if you do truly believe that the highest thing a woman can be is a virgin, because then the man who uses her will be the first one to use her, then that is where you are going to strip her of her value. The thing that you are saying that you are against, which is dehumanization of another person, which hookup culture encourages in many ways, you are essentially doing the same thing. Does that justify Awkward Goat calling this content creator the potential R word? It doesn't. But this kind of a thought process is the thought process that gives rise to sex crimes, sexual crimes against women. Because the easiest way to demean, you are not going to demean a woman by calling her very stupid, by calling her good for nothing. Those are also bad things, very bad things. But the most violently you can assert to a woman that she is now nothing, her value is less than what it was, is by taking away whatever this thing is. And that is the horrible nature of how insidious this thinking is. So every person subscribing to this thinking is not necessarily a potential R, and that word should be used carefully. But every single person who believes that the highest value of a woman lies in her vagina is contributing to the rape culture, because that is what creates the culture of physical violence and rape against women. Now the second thing is, if you do believe that someone being a virgin is such a great thing, although I don't think that a person who has had sex is essentially a different breed, but in any case, you believe that being a virgin is so valuable because you have made all the right decisions in your life, and you want a person who you get to experience first, whatever that means. You keep that as a priority. This, and also hates alcohol, 20k a month, whatever. Okay. You get into a relationship with this girl, and any object that you own, you're going to be very proud for the first 6 months that that object is new and shiny. But no object remains new and shiny forever, especially if how new that object is in your head is tied to their organ, which is going to be used for sex, it's going to be used for giving birth. Now this object after 6 months, 1 year isn't as new, and you are not getting the kind of high that you got initially. And now you discover that a real relationship may not have a lot to do with these, also may not have a lot to do with this tall, handsome. Now you want a person who makes you feel less alone in this world. You want a person who you feel understood by. You want a person who you can rely on. You want a person who is at least on the same emotional wavelength as you, right? And after 6 months, when you have already now embroiled a person into this kind of an equation with you, now you realize you were not even looking at these things. Men joke a lot about this post-nut clarity and all of that. When you are so busy objectifying a woman, you are not even considering any other aspect of that person as a human being. Once you have that, if you wake up one morning and you feel that you are living in a different reality and the person you are married to is living in a different reality, you have no emotional wavelength, no matching in the wavelength as to how you see the world. Your communication styles are so different, your worldviews are so different. What are you going to do? And I will not even feel bad for you in that scenario. I will just feel bad for the girl. You have embroiled another person in a relationship with you without having the basics of what constitutes a relationship ever figured out in your own head. Again, the only way this kind of a thing works is when men assume that women are these blank, extremely pliable, extremely malleable creatures. They just have to be pure, which means that they have to be unused. But once I acquire this unused object, I am going to make her, mold her in ways that I want her to be molded. That is the only framework in which this makes any sense. And that is my problem with so much red pill content, and content which on the surface looks like it is saying something right, which is it is talking about hookup culture. But this word just triggers me because repeatedly this word is used in the context of a woman. Lastly, the people who were commenting on my video last time, they were using a lot of fancy words, strawman fallacy, this fallacy, that fallacy. You're all obviously very well read and you can read between the lines. I assume you can read between the lines. So when you watch a video like the one that I just reacted to, do you not read at all between the lines that there is an implicit bias in that video where the guy always has his shit together? He's this poor little good guy with a good heart, and the girl is like this, oh, don't ask me about my past, and one girl is a virgin, another girl. And then I read some comments that said that triggered feminists are coming. First of all, I don't think a feminist would be triggered because you have your preferences. You can choose to be with a girl who's the color of orange. You can say, I want to marry a girl who's orange colored. And nobody should say a single thing because that's your business. But does this kind of a thing, it is very destructive for a society when it refuses to learn to see, to look at 50% of its population as people. You will do anything, almost anything, but look at another human being who's of a different gender, and if you're a straight heterosexual man, you are going to have to, or not, you don't have to, but you are probably going to want to walk with that human being together as your life companion. If you find a good person, that human being is going to be through you, with you through thick and thin, health and sickness, through all the ups and downs of your life. And you are repeatedly teaching yourself to look at that human being as an object. And your primary source of self esteem is that you can mistreat that human being and you can enslave that human being. I don't care what you think. Once again, I it's your business, but I know that even men who hate women, they still want to have women in their lives at all times, to have sex with, to be in relationships with. And it pains me to even think that a lot of the women who are great, intelligent, so deep, so thoughtful, they will not understand that a man giving them temporary attention or lusting after them is not necessarily the foundation of a healthy relationship. They might say yes to having you in their lives, and then after the initial stage of love bombing, which you might use to get into these women's life, because it's almost impossible for me to sit in my dungeon and constantly keep hating someone and then interact with them like a human being should interact with another human being. So you have to use like love bombing, you have to go for really, really young women or women who have already been abused and or are vulnerable, are having self-esteem issues. And these women who should be supported ideally in society, these women are perhaps they stand a chance to experience a greater amount of abuse. I recently watched a video of Shwetabh where he says that cheating is one of the worst pains that a human being in an intimate relationship can give to another human being. I think I agree. I can understand fully where that comes from. I would argue level of pain, a similar level of pain comes when a person that you are with decides to, after 6 months or 7 months of winning your trust, or sometimes 2 3 months if you are really desperate, sometimes we are desperate, of winning your trust, decides to bit by bit by bit by bit demolish your self esteem, to mock your opinions. When you give an opinion on something, and this the same guy used to say, oh, I like your thoughts so much. And now, when you're vulnerable, when you're invested in that relationship, when you give your opinion, he looks at you like, now you will speak, bitch, know your place. This kind of a shit where a man is telling a woman that he's probably sleeping with, that he probably wants to have children with, that as women age and as they have children, their value decreases. If you are a woman in a vulnerable position, it is going to kill your self esteem that you are going to take years to rebuild. Years, because it's not just a random stranger telling you that you are nothing. Even that affects you. A man who you have been intimate with, a man who you have sex with, a man who you confide in, that man, because of him following some red pill content, he is destroying your self esteem. He is destroying your self image bit by bit by bit by bit over years. That is truly horrifying, and that is the reality of a lot of women who fall into this trap of dating men who genuinely believe that their self esteem comes from destroying a woman's self esteem by how much they can control a woman. I have mentioned this in another reel of mine. I have grown up watching Shahrukh Khan. And to me, that was always my idea of love. That was always my idea of masculinity. It is ownership perhaps is a wrong word, but it is a guy saying, I love you, so I choose to be responsible for you. It's the same with parents. I love my child, so I choose to be responsible. I take it upon myself to create situations which are the most favorable for your growth, for your well being. I love you, so you belong to me, so I'm going to control how you act, and I'm going to control what you wear, and I'm going to tell you that you are not smart enough to argue with me. This has nothing to do with love. This is a man with a very broken self-esteem who is really struggling to get a sense of who he is in this world, and he is not where he wants to be perhaps, or he feels wronged by the systems which didn't let him succeed, which didn't give him the same kind of opportunity that they gave to the next man. And he sees the next man, and he sees that this man has access to all the sex, all the women, and instead of talking about the system, or instead of self reflecting, this man directs all his hatred and all his frustration to whoever it's the easiest to direct to, which is women. This is the kind of man who's going to want to control you. This is the kind of man who's going to say, I own you, so you better act like an object I own. And same with parents. The parents who are like, you owe me obedience. You owe me that you should treat me like the God of your universe because I put food on your table. Nothing to do with love. There may be some attachment there, not love. Love is saying, I am responsible for you. So I will create situations for your well being. And only a person with a good self esteem can love. I'm really sorry. If you hate yourself, you cannot love another person. And a lot of the red pill content is geared towards men who feel such discontent for themselves and such disgruntled feeling they have towards the world and what this world has become. To all people telling me that I was fighting you in my comments, I don't mind the fact that you hate women. I just feel afraid for the women who are going to expose themselves to you because they wouldn't probably know any better. And because a person is already in a vulnerable situation, they deserve to be nurtured and they deserve to be lifted up. But you or some of you will find these women in very vulnerable situations, and instead of lifting them up, you're going to kick them down. That is what angers me because I have seen this happen too many times in my life. Your opinions don't anger me. You can hate anyone you want. Thank you.